In this video, I'm going to go over a line of best fit. It's also referred to as a trend line, and these are found in scatter plots. Yesterday in my math class, we did a quick review of trend lines in general. We talked about a trend line needs to represent the data in the graph the best as possible. If we look at these first four real quick, the path of the dots in general is starting high and ending low. So that tells me for sure that I need a negative slope. When you look through all the graphs, there's two that don't represent a negative slope the way the line's been drawn. That's super messy writing, but we'll leave it there. When you follow the path of A, it does start high and goes low, so that is a negative slope. This letter B also is a negative slope, but when you get down to letter C, this starts and goes up. That's a positive slope, which doesn't even follow the path of these dots. Letter D has a straight line horizontally, and that is a zero slope, which also does not follow the path of these dots. So the best choice for this graph would be B, and the reason that it's the best choice is because it has as equal as possible dots on top or above the line as it does below the line. Graph A still is a negative slope like we said, but the majority of the dots are above the line and there's no dots below. So that tells me this slope is going to be too low in the graph and the y-intercept would be too low. You can tell on B the y-intercept is higher than what A is. Then when you look at this second set of graphs, we're still thinking about it in the same way. The dots start low and end high. That means I need a positive slope. And in these four examples, they all have the line drawn representing a positive slope. If you look through them, again, we want about equal amounts of dots on top as on the bottom. This one looks pretty good. B has the majority of the dots on top, so that's not good. That gives me a y-intercept that's too low. This would actually make a negative y-intercept. Letter choice C has all the dots below and none above. That's going to give me a y-intercept that's too high. And then letter D, it does have a dot on the left and some dots on the right, so that it's not equal, but it also is going to give me even a more negative y-intercept. So the best choice for this set would be graph A. Here's a little bit of vocabulary to go over and help understand. This time we're going to call it a line of best fit. I'm going to make this pointer a little bit bigger. A line of best fit, also called trend line. What is it? It's a line that refers to a trend in the data. It shows a positive or a negative slope. Sometimes there's no correlation at all, so you're not going to be able to draw a line. It suggests a possible mathematical relationship between the two sets of data. So it's going to show you how the x and y axis are related to one another. How do we find a trend line? Well, first you're going to draw a line through the data so that you have equal amounts of points that lie on both the left and right or the top and bottom of the line you draw. How do you write the actual equation, the mathematical equation? You are going to pick 2 points on the line. 2 points. And you're going to use these 2 points to determine the slope of the line. And before, I've had videos or I taught you that to get the slope of a line, you do y2 minus y1 and then x2 minus x1. Once you find the slope of the line, the next thing we can do is we can figure out what the y-intercept is, even if we don't have a graph. And I'll show you how to do that in just a little bit. So here's our first graph, and it says draw a line of best fit, and then try to write an equation for the line. We don't have any points listed in a table, so we're just going to kind of look at the path of these dots. It starts low and ends high, so that automatically tells me when I finish, I need to have a positive slope. And when I get ready to put my line through here, I want to try and pick the same amount of dots placed above and below the line. And if possible, I want to try to draw my line so it touches 2, maybe 3 dots if I can. So I'm going to try and touch maybe this dot and draw it and see if I have equal amounts above and below. And it's hard to make a very straight line on the iPad here. All right, I'm going to go back and count. I've got 1 dot, 2, 3, 4. Maybe I could count this one as 5. Below, I have 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe this one could be below 5. So I pretty much have equal dots below and above. If you wanted to shift it up just a tiny bit and include this one, you could. But that's pretty good. The 2 dots that I selected, I highlighted in pink. I am going to write down what those points were. This first one, I would go over 1, 2, 1, 2. Oops, no, that's the wrong one. 1, 2, 3. So my X is 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And my Y is 5. So my first coordinate is 3, 5. And the second point that I chose was right up here. And I'm going to figure out that number, which is 6, 7, 8, 9. So my X value is 9. Then if I go up all the way to here, that's going to match up with 11. So my second set is going to be 9, 11. Okay, once you get that, we're going to do the formula of y2 minus y1 and x2 minus x1. And I'm going to move this out of the way so I have more space to work this out. Again, I'm going to put the formula in here for people who forgot. Y2 minus y1 and then x2 minus x1. Now I can substitute these numbers in, and I already labeled them right here. So I make sure and put the right one in the right spot. For y2, that was 11, and y1 was 5. So 11 minus 5. And then x2 was 9, and x1 was 3. When I go to subtract these, I have 11 minus 5 is 6, and 9 minus 3 is also 6. So right now my slope is 6 over 6, which basically simplifies down to be 1. And your slope, when you write your equation, is going to be represented by the letter M. The equation is going to say y equals mx plus b. And right now, I know that slope, or m, is 1. So y equals 1x. And when I go back and just look at this graph in general, I can tell that my y-intercept is going to be above 0. So I'm going to go ahead and put plus. And then we're going to figure out what number goes in the spot of b. Now to do that, I'm going to scoot this up a little bit more. Scoot that up a little bit more. I'm going to start with the equation that I have right here. I'm going to go ahead and put the letter B because I don't know what it is yet. That's what we're trying to find, is letter B. I'm going to say y equals 1x plus b. Now, instead of me keeping the letter y and the letter x, I'm going to substitute it out. I'm going to take this ordered pair. It doesn't matter which one I choose because I'm going to get the same answer, but I'm just going to choose that one. And for the x value, I'm going to put in a 9. And for the y value, I'm going to put in 11 right here in these two positions. So for the x value, I'm going to put 9. And for the y value, I'm going to put 11. Now I can solve this equation just like it is. And whenever I get my answer, it's going to say b equals, and then I can put that in my equation to get my final answer. This is a lot of work, but if you don't have a calculator and you don't have all the exact points, this is how you would solve it. 11 equals 1 times 9 is 9 plus b. And then when you get ready to solve, you would do, get rid of your 9. You want to isolate the b by itself, so take away 9. That makes 2. And then it says 2 equals b. Now I can take this, the number that I just got, 2. Oops, my arrow's not going in the right space. And put it where the b is in my final equation. So the final answer for equation would say y equals 1x plus, and the number that we just got down here was 2. And then when you go back and look at your equation and compare what's down here with the actual graph, the line I drew looks pretty close to crossing the graph on the y-axis at 2. So that means I did a pretty good job of picking out my points. On this page, we have a list of all the data points that have already been graphed in here. Then it says what we want to do is try to determine the line of best fit. So I don't have to draw this myself. It's going to be mostly like a test question would be, and it's going to give me a grouping, A, B, C, D. Which one of these pairs is the one that would end up being the best line for this graph? This is how you'd be tested on it. So I'm going to take point A, and I'm going to say 3.4 and 275, and then 3.4 and 236. I'm going to go put those dots. I'm going to highlight them with a color and draw a line and see if this makes sense. If it does, awesome. If it does not, then I'm going to scoot down to the next one. Because that's a lot in one graph, I just put a duplicate of it over here so I could test out points C and D. I'm going to make these a little bit bigger, my dots, so I don't have to scribble around. So 3.4 and 275. That's really close to 3.5, so, and then 275 is a little bit below 300. So that dot would be there. Then also 3.4 and 236, which would be the one just below it. If I were to connect those dots, that's obviously not going to be a good choice because it's going to be a vertical line. It would go like this. Okay, that's bad. Totally bad. Then if I'm going to choose another color. The second set of points says go to 2.2 and then 1.48. So 2.2 is a little bit past 2, and then 1.48 would be this dot right here. Pretty close. And then the second dot says go to 3.4 and 375. So again, 3.4 was right here, and 375 was this dot. So I'm going to put a green over the top of that one, and then I'll draw this one in yellow. And then I'll go back and put my dots above that. So when I look at that one, I've got 3 dots above it, and I have 1, 2, 3 dots below it. So this one is possibly pretty good. We don't know, but we're going to keep it and then test the other ones. Okay, now I'm going to look at C. It says 1.6 and 105. 1.6 would be around 1.5, and then 105. It looks like that dot is not even really on it. This one, that would be over 150. So since that point is not really even in the graph, I'm going to say that's probably wrong, but we'll see. Then 2.2 and 148. 2.2 is going to be really close to 2, and then 148 would be right there. So that would be I can also tell that this is totally going to be not a good choice because it's going to go like this. And then all these dots are above, but I'll go ahead and draw the line. And then put those dots back on my line so I didn't see it. Okay, that's totally not good. Then my last set says 2.5 and 189. 2.5 and 189 would be this one. And then my second or my last dot would be 4.5 and 324. So 4.5 was here and 324 would be this dot right there. If I were to connect those and then put my dots back in there. This one appears to be too high. If I go like this, I have 2 dots above it, and then all these other dots were underneath, and I know these are pretty thick, so you can't see them very good. But I only have 2 dots above the line when I choose D. So I'm going to go ahead and X that one out because I don't think that's the best one. We decided that B, when we looked over here on this side, the one I did with green and yellow, went this direction. And I had 2 dots above and I had 2 dots below. It started low and ended high, so I got a positive slope, which was good. Therefore, I'm going to say this is the best answer.